Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans, and soon they will be available to everyone.
This vaccine means hope. It will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
I want to go back to work and I want to be able to move around.
To visit with Michelle's mom, to hug her and see her on her birthday.
You know what I'm really looking forward to is going to opening day in Texas Ranger Stadium with a full stadium.
We've lost enough people and we've suffered enough damage.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, it's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
I'm getting vaccinated because we want this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
So roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
Now it's up to you.
It's finally that time of year, Rams. The ASCSU spring election for your student government is here. ASCSU is responsible for funding so many important programs, such as Ramride, student organizations, Transport, the Rec Center, Rams Against Hunger, and so much more.
Candidates for President and Vice President, Speaker of the Senate, and Senators have started campaigning on the plaza, so get out and engage with your student body government. This is the time and opportunity to make your voice heard, so get out and vote. Keep an eye out for QR codes around campus for easy and quick access to voting information. Students will be able to vote for candidates on March 30th, March 31st, and April 1st for the 2021 ASCSU elections.
Good evening, my name is Robbie Patla, and I will be your moderator for tonight's 2021-2022 for the next Speaker of the Senate for the Associated Students of Colorado State University. I'll go over a few ground rules for the debate before we begin. We will start by each candidate providing an opening statement where they will introduce themselves and provide their opening statement. Then we will move on to directed and general questioning. For the directed questions towards each candidate, they will have 1 minute to answer. For the general questions, they will have 45 seconds. If a candidate wishes to rebuttal, they will have 30 seconds to do so. We will be receiving questions throughout the night, and for those watching at home, you can submit questions to the email provided on screen at ascsudebate2021@gmail.com. Please make it clear in your question which candidate or candidates the question is directed to. CTV does not endorse any specific candidate, but seeks to provide fair and equal coverage of all the candidates. We will now begin with opening statements. You may begin.
Thank you. My name is Kyle Hill. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I'm running to be your next Speaker of the Senate because I think it is about high time that we students are come first. This past year, with a pandemic that has raged across our community, with a tumultuous election has caused us to be divided, I think it's about time that we bring back unity back into our leadership, unity back into our student government, and unity back to our campus. We are here to have an education. We are here to learn, and we are here to make friends and have more new experiences. And that's why I think that we need a speaker and leadership to promote that and have the best quality of our education.
Thank you. Ms. Hazelton?
Hi, my name is Marlis Hazelton. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am running to be the next Speaker of the Senate. I am a sophomore with the major of neuroscience, and I'm running on 4 principles: advocacy, transparency, accountability, and inclusion. I have a couple plans for those. In terms of accountability, I want to start by accessibility measures. And through that, I would like to, while Senate is already started by doing live captioning and live access to our Senate meetings, I also want the SDC, the Student Disability Center, to do an audit to see how ASCSU can be the most accessible to the most amount of students. I also want to start, as Kyle Hill said, I also want to do an initiative for unity by hosting a once a month meeting with college council presidents. That idea is that so all students across CSU will be united as a front, regardless of major. I also would like to protect and uplift marginalized identities. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now I'll start with a general question for both of you. What do you think are the top 3 issues students are facing today? Mr. Hill, we may begin with you.
Well, I think the first issue that we're facing today is COVID. I believe, COVID has been raging through our community, as I said, and I believe that we need to increase mask wearing. I believe that, we need to encourage our fellow, students to continue doing safety precautions, getting vaccinations as that's coming out more. And we need to, increase transparency between administration and the student body. I believe that has been lacking this past year, and as Speaker of the Senate, it would be my job to basically bridge those gaps. Also, I think the second issue is race and equality. I feel like that racism and on this campus is skyrocketing recently, and I think that we need to hold administration accountable and allowing a due process to take place for people who are being targeted for these racial attacks. And the third issue is...
Thank you. Ms. Hazelton?
I'd like to start with, I think Kyle Hill had a really good point. I mean, it's hard not to say COVID. Specifically, I think one of the best things that Senate did this year is Lizzie Osterhout actually passed a bill to create basically a travel stipend for Native American students so that they could go home to their homelands where a lot of their health insurance is. And I want to encourage ideas like that within our Senate. I think also the lack of representation in the Board of Governors. We only have one representative, and I would like to add another coming from the Senate. The third one, aptly put, is the racism and inequity on campus, and something I would do that, to help with that, is to protect the senators with marginalized identities in our community.
Thank you. All right, now I will have a specific question towards each of you. Kyle, we'll start with you. Mr. Hill. You say you want your campaign to focus on unity. Could you please expand upon this?
So unity, I believe, is going to start with leadership, in ASCSU. I think this past year, Senate and executive branches have been, completely divided. And, and I know a lot of senators and a lot of, executive branch members don't agree on everything, and we need to understand that that's okay. We don't have to agree on anything, but to remember that we are here for the students, and we are here to work with others, in passing bills and passing legislation and student fees to benefit, every student body. And I believe that can trickle down to the student body as we can, be leaders and essentially show them that, unity is possible despite political or any differences that we have within our student body population.
Thank you. Ms. Hazelton, what pushed you to run as a write-in candidate?
So I've been internal affairs chair for over a year, and I really loved it. I think it was a great way for me to advocate for students inside ASCSU. However, there were a lot of policies I ran into that I could not enact because I was not in charge. And that became more and more clear as this semester went on, and I decided to run as a write-in candidate because I think I can make so much change within ASCSU if I am given the power. One of the great examples of that is going to be a more accessible and equitable parliamentary procedure, which will ensure that all students have a safe voice and they are safe within a Senate space.
Thank you. We have a question from the email. This is for both candidates. There's no denying that ASCSU has a stigma of unwelcomeness around it. Most students are imitated by it. What will you do to change the culture we've seen in the past? Mr. Hill?
Well, I believe, establishing, as I said, a due process, where we, I believe, have one-on-one talks, more one-on-one talks with senators, have more one-on-one talks with the students, become more involved within student affairs, get more involved in tailgating in football games or basketball games and any sports that basically we can greet, any random students and say, hey, how can we help you? Show the student body that we care and that we listen to your voices. Because, as a CSU Ram, I can understand the disconnect, and I can understand that sometimes what it's like to not be able to connect well with our fellow Rams, and I believe that's what student government needs to do. We need to show that we care and show that we can be equitable to anybody, no matter who or what color they are.
Thank you.
So I think that is a kind of a two-pronged thing. I think it needs to be welcoming to not only the average student on campus, but also to the senators. And to be accessible to the average student on campus, it's why I want to get involved with college councils and student organizations, because I think that is the easiest way to get access to students, and that's why I want to have a meeting with the presidents, because they know what's going on in their college. And college councils are so easy to be a part of and are so an internal community that I think it's a wonderful way to get involved. The second way is to help with students already in the space, and I think that is to protect them. And the way I want to do that is start enforcing policies that are already in place, such as Student Code of Conduct, employment, Equal Opportunity Employment Office, and ad hominem policies.
All right, Hill, this is directed towards you. How do you feel your prior ASCSU experience will help you as a speaker?
Thank you for that question. You know, as a senator who have been working for 2 years, I understand how the whole legislative process works. I understand parliamentary procedure, and I've written 4 bills and 1 resolution within my time here at ASCSU. You know, despite them, not all of them passing, I understand and have the experience in writing them and collaboration. And through that, those are all skills needed to be, you know, the Speaker of the Senate. And I think that, you know, as Speaker of the Senate, I can use my prior knowledge of the bill writing process and parliamentary procedure to help other senators or students who want to get involved in ASCSU to implement such measures.
Thank you. Ms. Hazelton, how do you plan to pursue equity on campus?
That is a great question. So I think it starts with talking to senators and associate senators as part of the SDPS offices. Obviously, they know best from first-person perspectives, what the inequities on campus. And as a queer woman in STEM, I can also identify the inequities on campus. And what I want to do is I want to gather that list, and I want to gather the information and go to the upper management and talk and basically explain the student's perspective, because I think often they don't necessarily have that one-on-one time, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to give that one-on-one time, and it's something I'm afforded as speaker. Another thing is talking about passing legislation and advocating for that pieces of legislation. I am currently a part of an organization that is working towards getting inclusive restrooms on campus, which I think is one way that we have inequity on campus. We've had students tell us how they can't afford to go, they can't take classes because they couldn't go to the bathroom.
All right, just a quick reminder for those who are watching at home, you can submit questions that you want us to ask by emailing ascsudebates2021@gmail.com. All right, this next question will be directed towards both candidates. We have adapted to working in a hybrid and online environment, so how do you anticipate representing students in the virtual environment? Will you change or do things differently than the prior or present speaker? Hill?
Yes, I believe that, you know, as we become more vaccinated, more people become vaccinated, we need to go back to a sense of normalcy. I believe that, you know, these measures for Zoom and hybrid, they're supposed to be temporary. They're not supposed to last forever in the rest of our lives. And as we get, you know, maybe we're not ready to do that right now, I acknowledge that, but as we get closer to herd immunity, I plan to bring back, you know, senators into the Senate chamber, if public measures allow it, and I promise to, you know, make sure that face-on-face direct contact, I believe, is very important for collaboration and skill, and I think that, you know, with a hybrid system, we will continue to push that more into our administration, and providing more face-to-face contact is our student body, I believe, needs.
Thank you. Hazelton?
So I think the most important thing is acknowledging that not all students are going to feel safe being in a completely in-face person next semester. I think that it's going to take a long time for us to truly recover from the effects of COVID. So I think something that Speaker Dixon has done that's really amazing is doing live recordings of our Senate meetings, as well as doing live captioning during the entire Senate meeting. And I want to continue that regardless if we end up going back to more in-person events. I want to keep that online access, and I want to make sure that shift is safe for all students. In terms of advocating, I want to talk about ensuring that students' privacy is safe, such as certain testing proctors have privacy issues, and I want to make sure I want to start that conversation, and I want to continue that conversation.
Thank you. Do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, I did. Well, I believe that, the longer we have online, the more opportunities that we have, more senators to not, be held accountable or come to work or, come, and when we had fully in person, Senate sessions, more senators were able to be on the spot, have that in person, face-to-face conversations. And I believe that doing that is, essential to our student government, and it creates more things done for the student body, but the sooner we have to go back to face-to-face, the more we can do.
Thank you. Response?
Yes, I want to acknowledge that I think in-person is so vital, and as an extrovert, I love doing in-person things. However, I think it's really important that we keep our space accessible and inclusive, and if there are students who are uncomfortable coming to Senate, they should still be allowed to be a part of Senate.
Thank you. All right. This next question, will also be directed to both candidates. What does accountability and transparency look like as a Speaker of the Senate? Hill?
I believe accountability is, making sure that all senators and all are doing their job. That's why I believe that creating an incentive for, senators to get paid, to increase, this, to allow senators to be able to have that incentive to basically, have a job and be able to, get money and essentially, do work. I think that's going to be the push we need for, senators to have accountability. Also, making sure, that each senator will have to write at least 1 or 2 bills in their time per year, and work with executive, must have a signature and an endorsement for any bill they make from a member of executive. That is the only way I believe that we can have true unity and have a system where collaboration and accountability can and will take place.
Thank you.
So I think part of the issue we run into with payments, as Kyle Hill said, what we run into is that we don't have that budget. And to be frank, senators shouldn't have to be paid, and student fees shouldn't pay the senators. They are volunteers, and that is something that's so beautiful about ASCSU is everyone is there for the right reasons and is not there for the paycheck. In terms of accountability and transparency in my rule, Senate legislation tracker is really important, and I want to keep that updated. I also want to have an updated senator list. I think office hours, we have mandatory office hours, and that's a part of the senator's responsibilities, and we should mandate that and make sure that that's happening. And if it's not happening, having those conversations and possibly if ends be lead to punishment.
Thank you. All right, Hill, this is a question for you. How will you work to create a better relationship between each branch of ASCSU?
Well, I think that creating a better relationship, as I said, starts with collaboration and being able to, make sure that every student or every senator and every executive has some common ground to make sure that they can, join and have joint legislation, and making sure that all sides are agree with it. Having meetings, one-on-one meetings, more collaboration, more opportunities for mingling. Like, for example, the fall retreats and the spring retreats were an amazing thing, and how senators and executive branch and judicial branch got to come together and mingle at a retreat outside the CSU campus to basically get to know each other, and become friends, etc. And I think that's what we need to have in our student government, a way for all senators be able to come and, despite their differences, come to work together for the betterment of the student body. And by having required endorsement from another branch is something that I would require the senators to have if I become Speaker in the bill legislation process.
So in terms of the way I would do it is again, communication. It's so important to, I think, send those emails out, and also just making relationships. So if a senator comes to me with a project, I'm going to suggest that they work with someone on executive, because the executive people have a lot of expertise in their field, and I think it's underutilized by the Senate space. And that is so important to start making those connections. And so we are not only on the same page, but together in projects. So we can all proudly say that ASCSU completed this, not just Senate, not just executive, ASCSU. If I become Speaker, my hope would be I would have relationships with the executive branch, and we would combine those initiatives. So we would have weekly meetings to make sure we are all on the same page and together in a community, and we are friends, and making sure that there is no miscommunication, because I think from my personal experience, that's been the biggest problem within ASCSU is miscommunication.
Thank you. Ms. Hazelton, this question was emailed in and it's directed towards you. How will you protect senators with marginalized identities?
That's a great question. So the primary way I want to do, and I will state, this is a process I unfortunately didn't have access to, and I think if I had access to it, I would have done it. We have certain policies in place on CSU campus, such as the Code of Conduct, Office of Equal Opportunity, and those are the two primary ways of punishing. Unfortunately, due to the financial aspect of ASCSU, we cannot personally remove people. That's part of something that has come from legal counsel. But what we can do is I can help senators guide through that complaint process, and I can be an advocate on their behalf, and I can push for them to have the ability to get the justice they seek. So there will no longer be ad hominem attacks, which is a personal attack in the space. There will no longer be death threats and harassment threats. We will make sure that those senators are safe because we are going through the process, and we will have the entire university behind us.
Thank you. This next one is for both of you. What is your perspective on the issue regarding empty Senate seats and the lack of representation with certain colleges, student offices, and other groups in the Senate, and how will you address this issue? Mr. Hill?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, I believe that there are certain colleges that do not have senators filling that position. For example, the College of Business, I believe they're supposed to have around 8 senators for that college, and not one of them is being filled right now. I think one will become filled pretty shortly, but I think that or the College of Agricultural Sciences can have capacity as well. I believe the collaboration with their college councils, going out to just spreading the word within the plaza or football games or something, education essentially, getting out there and spreading what we are, what we do. Go to the college councils, have one-on-one meetings with the presidents of each college council, and say, hey, we should do this, or you should have your senator come and work.
Thank you.
Help us.
So there's a couple, and I talked about this a little bit previously, but I'll kind of focus in on the college council aspect. I think the most important part is recognizing that ASCSU is an important space to have a representative in. And I think working with the college councils and having meetings with those presidents and telling them, this is what ASCSU is about, this is why you should be a part of it. Talking about student fees, representing that. I know as vice chair of UTFAB, we've had a really hard time during COVID filling seats and getting to quorum. And I think it's because sometimes students don't quite understand the awesome power we have as students in this space. And I would focus on reaching out and also making sure the space, when they come in, they are welcomed. There is a process. They are trained in, so they are an active member in Senate and they know what's going on, and there's no confusion. They can be a productive member of Senate as soon as they start, and that's important.
Thank you. Tahoe, this question was sent in for you. Can you elaborate on the transportation relief that you want to promise to the students? Yes.
I came into ASCSU with the sole purpose of, at first, creating transportation relief. After, unfortunately, a student died right next to my dorm room due to a car accident. And I believe that increased safety precautions, increased safety measures within our roads on campus are an essential necessity. I have done 2 bills for transportation relief. Unfortunately, they did not entirely work out, but I am continuing to work with administration and the Senate to provide the funding and tools necessities needed to begin this process of implementation of our roads and construction regarding creating a safe campus.
Thank you. Ms. Hazelton, how has your time as a chairman on the Internal Affairs Committee impacted your campaign, and how would that impact you as the Speaker of the Senate if you were to win?
So I'll acknowledge being Internal Affairs Chair means I'm very internally processed, and so a lot of times when I talk about what I did in the Senate space, it occasionally goes over people's heads a little bit. One of the things I'm most proud about is I implemented the caucus and the Constitution so that we can have a space. Currently, the caucuses in Senate are the Women's Caucus and the Diversity Inclusion Caucus. I also have there's also a bill on the floor currently to implement diversity and inclusion measures within the Senate space and the ASCSU space as a whole. One of those being that we read the land acknowledgement at the beginning of every ASCSU meeting, which I think is so important and something that was brought up by senators, by SDPS senators. I think how it'll make me as a speaker, I am really good at parliamentary procedure. I am really good at controlling a space. And I would make sure that not only would we have order in the Senate space, but I would also follow proper procedure. Thank you.
Thank you. This question is for both candidates. Will you continue to uphold Robert's Rules of Order, or do you have a newer system in place?
I believe that a system of parliamentary procedure to uphold, to make sure order is in the Senate, is essential to conduct a timely and orderly business that requires every student, every senator to have a voice within the Senate chambers. Whether it be Robert's Rules of Order or any other system in place, is essential to require a balanced system where all senators can have a voice that is fashionable, orderly, and will not cause any distraction. And I believe that the current system of Robert's Rules of Order has done such that, and I believe that if there's any concerns regarding such measures, then we will, if it's up to the Senate, we will change that.
Thank you.
So Robert Rules of Order was written by a man in the late 1800s who came from a military background and wrote it to help with meetings in his church. Obviously, the Senate space looks very different from that. It also has a tendency, it's over 800 pages long, and I can promise you no one has read it its entirety in ASCSU currently, which is wildly problematic if we're using it to base our parliamentary procedure on. So what I want to do is I want to change that. There are so many other parliamentary procedures written out, some with the specific purpose of bringing diverse identities to the table. One that comes to mind specifically is the American parliamentary procedure that they recommend. There's actually like an association. They recommend one. It was written by a woman in the 1970s. I think it's wildly important.
Thank you. All right, this is for you, Kyle. This was emailed in. You have a history of siding with students in Greek life and silencing other voices. How can we trust you to listen to all sides of an issue?
I appreciate that question. I believe that every student should be heard, and I believe that Greek life, whether it is a certain segment within CSU, there are also other clubs, activities, diversity, inclusion, caucuses, and other that also have an equal voice on this campus, and I believe that I'm not going to solely just listen or look at Greek life, but also other voting blocks within our campus as well.
Thank you. Ms. Hazelton, this one's for you. On your platform, you said that a part of inclusion to you means to increase accessibility to ASCSU through advertisement and outreach. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so one of the ways that we talk about this a lot within ASCSU is people don't know about it. So people have this lack of understanding and knowledge of ASCSU and what it truly means to be within ASCSU. And I think starting a campaign to promote that and to say this is what ASCSU is, and to educate all of the students at CSU so they now know why is it so important to vote for your senators, why is it so important to vote for vice president and president, because they control your student fees. That's a really large part of what ASCSU is about. The vice president chairs SFRB, which is our student fee advisory board, and that is why it's so important to reach out. And I want to do that through organizations. I want to do that through college councils. I want to do that in 100 level classes. So going to them and saying, hey, this is something you may not be aware of. Putting that in your orientation so you know right off the bat, this is ASCSU, this is important.
Thank you. This one was emailed in for both candidates. How will you foster an environment of trust and understanding in the Senate chambers? Hill?
Well, I think trust is something that, should be earned. I think that, fostering a community of safety, transparency, and communication is important for senators to trust each other or trust executive. We are nothing without trust. Any relationship or any foundation is built on the essence of trust. And if that is not within our Senate chambers or within our ASCSU, we will fall apart. So I believe that creating a system where we all go directly to the source, fostering inclusion and basic communication is essential to building that trust and that foundation through teamwork and leadership.
Thank you.
So trust comes, as Mr. Hill said, trust is earned. I think one of the biggest ways to do that is foster relationships. I will also give credit to our former speaker, or our current speaker, Speaker Dixon. He did implemented part of our procedure is that when we do discussion and debate, it goes from idea to idea. So it is a equal process, so we hear all the ideas on the floor, and I think that's so important. Another thing is we have started doing small icebreakers before Senate, and unfortunately we've been doing it rather infrequently. I would want to make that a consistent thing if we stay, especially if we stay online, having a moment to say, hey, go talk to the senator, talk about something you're working on right now, talk about what your favorite music is. And I think that fostering just relationships in general is...
Thank you. This one's for both. How do you remain strong for Senate members in difficult times?
I believe that right now, during this year and this pandemic, mental health is at a critical time right now. There are so many people, so many students, and I'm sure some senators who are struggling with that. And I think that building a system of, hey, I'm here for you. I understand what you're feeling. If you have anything, come talk. If you need a week or two off from, being in the Senate chambers to get, yourself taken care of, because senators come first. They're people and they're students. So that we must know that, we care about you, and be, have more one-on-ones with them, have more, go to dinner or go to a hike or something, being able to not just, be, I'm the speaker, you're the senator, you do what I say. Don't, instead of acting like that, go and find that one-on-one and that time together with them.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. How do you remain strong for Senate members in difficult times?
Yeah, so for me, as a STEM major, I'm really big on research. So being educated and knowing all the resources accessible, because I'll admit I'm not perfect and I don't have the training it takes to deal with someone in a mental health crisis. But I do have the resources necessary to transfer and get those students the resources they need. Also, once again, creating relationships with them, having those one-on-one meetings and having those conversations with them so we feel like friends. It's not just a distant relationship. But I think it comes down to being educated and knowing the resources and just being there for them.
Thank you. We will now transition to a quick 5-minute intermission. We will see you all in a second.
It's finally that time of year, Rams. The ASCSU spring election for your student government is here. ASCSU is responsible for funding so many important programs, such as Ramride, student organizations, Transport, the Rec Center, Rams Against Hunger, and so much more.
Candidates for President and Vice President, Speaker of the Senate, and Senators have started campaigning on the plaza, so get out and engage with your student body government. This is the time and opportunity to make your voice heard, so get out and vote. Keep an eye out for QR codes around campus for easy and quick access to voting information. Students will be able to vote for candidates on March 30th, March 31st, and April 1st for the 2021 ASCSU elections.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans, and soon they will be available to everyone.
This vaccine means hope. It will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
I want to go back to work and I want to be able to move around.
To visit with Michelle's mom, to hug her and see her on her birthday.
I'm really looking forward to is going to opening day in Texas Ranger Stadium with a full stadium.
We've lost enough people and we've suffered enough damage.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, it's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
I'm getting vaccinated because we want this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
So roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
Now it's up to you.
Welcome back, viewers. As a quick reminder for those watching at home, you can submit questions to be asked by emailing ascsudebates2021@gmail.com. We resume with a question that was emailed in. This is for both candidates. With COVID vaccines becoming more available, it is kind of shocking that CSU does not have any vaccine locations on campus for student accessibility. Do you intend to expand CSU's COVID response by opening up areas like Moby Arena and the Canvas Stadium for vaccine distribution? Why or why not? Start with you, Kyle.
Thank you for that question. You know, as someone who is a BMS major, I am very well involved and with vaccinations in general, and so absolutely yes, I would support any space open for vaccinations. And to be frank, it is very concerning. I share that sentiment of concern that students can that CSU does not have a vaccination program being implemented already, despite our COVID cases still being at a very critical high level. And I believe that the sooner we get vaccinated, the sooner we can get to a sense of normalcy. So I would argue that we should direct more student fees as well to the health network so they can more easily have the funds capable of implementing a mass vaccination program for all CSU students.
Thank you.
So your health student fees are part of something called SHAC, and I, as speaker, would work with SHAC and collaborate so that we can find a solution in terms of specific vaccination in relation to student fees. Part of the reason why CSU hasn't yet implemented those actions is getting a vaccine and getting certified as a vaccine resource is quite difficult. I would reach out to the administration to find that bridge that gap of information and find out what is CSU doing truly to help people get vaccinated, and why have they not yet gotten that policy? I would bridge that gap of information from administrator to student so that we all have a better understanding of how CSU is handling the COVID crisis.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, this question is directed towards you. In an interview with the Collegian, you talk about bringing back in-person meetings. How do you plan to do this, and what measures will you implement to ensure this plan remains safe during the pandemic?
Well, I believe, as I said before, face-to-face communication is essential for any collaboration. And I believe that Senate and executive, had worked together when things were in person. And I believe that if public health measures, of course, agree, I would make sure that senators would come back, and when herd immunity is established which I believe next fall, given the current rate of vaccinations, this isn't going to be forever. Eventually, we need to get back to that sense of normalcy. I mean, this is supposed to be a temporary thing, but I will require masks. I require any mask wearings all over campus, within the community and within ASCSU, in the Senate chambers, and any public health guidelines that the county has implemented as well.
Thank you. Your rebuttal?
I, as speaker, would ensure that every student felt safe, and I think that's a first and foremost priority. When we talk about face-to-face interactions, there's a lot of implications that go behind that. Students who are still suffering from COVID risks may be concerned. Some students can't get vaccinated, and I want to be very cognizant of that. And so when we talk about in-person meetings, I think this is a slow trek to normalcy rather than a speed run. And I think that's really important to note when we talk about plans, because I want to have a contingency plan for every affair.
Thank you. Your response?
A more significant hybrid model would be, something I would go for as well. Look, we have plenty of students in classrooms already in a hybrid system. Why is it any different for ASCSU? If we can do it in a hybrid system, we can do it as well in ASCSU.
Thank you. Saleston, this question is directed at you. The issue of ad hominem attacks and overall decorum within Senate sessions and the Senate space has become a central topic of discussion for the 50th Senate. How do you plan on keeping decorum and ensuring that the Senate and other members of ASCSU are holding these standards for behavior if you were to win?
So something I'm really proud of that I did in the Senate space is I actually implemented a policy of ad hominem attacks. So that's a 3-strike rule. You get strike 1, it's a warning. Strike 2, you cannot speak for the rest of the session. And strike 3, you're required to leave. And basically how that would work in the Senate space that I would facilitate is talking about, so your first one's a warning. People make mistakes. And most of the I'd like to think most of the time it's on accident. That second one, and these would be out throughout a semester. So that first one, you get a warning. That second one, you can't speak for that rest of that meeting, but you come back to the next meeting and you get a chance to try again. But by that third one, and every contingency one after, you would be removed from the space. So what that means is, let's say I've said 2 ad hominem attacks, I'm allowed to come to every Senate session. I'm allowed to speak at every Senate session. But if I make the same mistake again, and after I've been warned again, I would be removed from the space until the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. This is for both candidates. Every ASCSU session starts with a land acknowledgement. Can you explain what this tradition means to you, and do you have any ideas to better support Indigenous students on campus? Phil?
The land acknowledgement is essentially, our way of understanding that the land that we are on today was stolen from Native Americans, and it acknowledges that we stole it, and this is their land. And every time you take a drink, every time you walk around on campus, every time you go to class, and every time you breathe, this is not exactly our land. This is the land that we took from our Native American friends. And by having that land acknowledge it, it reminds ourselves of that. And it reminds ourselves that we need to make sure that we are thankful that we have this right now, currently.
Thank you.
I think the land acknowledgement is really important in acknowledging our privilege. As a white person, I've never had my land taken away from me. I've never had to worry about where I'm going to live. I've never been forced out of my home. And I think that's something that's so important to talk about and acknowledge, is that we have Native American Indigenous students who can no longer be on the lands that that were their ancestral homelands. And I think that's so important to acknowledge. And in terms of supporting and advocating for Indigenous students, I think their voice has been said. And they want the land acknowledgement to be spoken at every single meeting on CSU campus. And I will fight for that idea because...
Thank you. This next one is also directed towards both candidates. It's noted that the Student Fee Review Board is responsible for allocating nearly $64 million a year across many different outlets. As Speaker, you will be a part of this board. So how do you feel about your presence and opinion? How do you feel your presence and opinion can make a difference, and how do you plan on holding them accountable?
Well, I believe that right now, currently, well, I don't believe, but we are in a recession currently right now in the United States. And people are struggling economically with jobs and paying for tuition. And the last thing that students need or want is to have to pay more student fees, to CSU. And I believe that as someone who would be on the SFRB board, I would make pretty darn sure that those student fees are going to go somewhere, within any student fee funded area. And I would make sure that they are held accountable, and I will do whatever I can to make sure that these student fees are decreased, within any area here at CSU.
Thank you.
So I have the privilege of being vice chair for the University Technology Fee Advisory Board. So I'm very well aware of SFRB's process. That also means I'm part of the Pacific Council, which is the President's Council in order to help the President and the Board of Governors decide how they're going to spend the money on campus. So I have been fortunate enough to have a very big say in how our student fees are spent, and I'm proud to say that UTFAB did not ask for an increase this year. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that we are in a recession. We are dealing with financial difficulties, but that's not new for college students. The college students have always had financial difficulties, and to acknowledge that and ensure that we are spending our student fees in the most efficient and equitable way possible is what I want to put forth to
Thank
SFRB.
You. This next one's also directed towards both. As the Speaker of the Senate, you will be tasked with appointing the ASCSU Senate leadership. What makes an effective Senate leadership team, and how will you choose members that will not only fulfill their roles in the Senate, but represent their goals and needs of the student body as a whole?
I believe that we need to find people who are going to be willing to work with both sides and work with executive, work with judicial in a way that is respectful, timely, and in a way that's collaborative and communicative. Making sure that these, people are being held accountable, they're doing the right thing, and they're working, with any member of exec to pursue, because here's the thing, we're nothing without unity. We cannot do anything for the student body if we're not united. And unfortunately, that's something that I've been seeing lacking this past administration or past year, with all around ASCSU. And I think that we need to bring back this unity and making sure that these, chairmen or chairwomen are being held accountable for this is something that I would be willing to do.
Thank you.
So the Senate leadership team is elected by the entire Senate, which means basically people are nominated and then they have a running, similar to the way what we're doing right now is it's an election. And I think it's important to make sure every student feels like they have the opportunity to be on Senate leadership. Unfortunately, I ran unopposed, and so did Chair Boenko, who's the Budgetary Affairs Chair, and I think that's because students were scared and they were nervous about being in a leadership position. I would want to encourage Senate leadership so it's a diverse space. We also include caucus chairs in our Senate leadership, which bring a unique, diverse opinion, and I think that's so important. I would use my leadership team to be my allies and to be my resources and to ensure that I am the best person for Senate, and so that they would keep me in line.
Thank you. All right, this next one was emailed in and it is for both candidates. How do you plan to overcome divisions and conflict between the various branches of ASCSU?
Well, I think that, a lot of relationships are hurt right now within ASCSU by, forcing a, conversation, saying, okay, what can we do with this? What happened? Addressing the problem, how are we going to fix it, and how are we going to move forward with this? That's something I will, work with, between interbranch relations. And as I said before, any bill that wants to be implemented by any senator, they will have to get at least a few endorsements from, executive branch or judicial branch to force that collaboration. And by forcing any form of collaboration, we will be able to, find common ground on initiatives that we can work together on.
Thank you.
So I think something that's really important is that we don't force collaboration. I think that having a natural relationship is so much more important than a forced relationship, because I think that's where conflict can occur. Something I would want to do that's very tangible is do an overview of the Constitution. We did one back in 2017 to 2018, and I think it needs another go at it. I think there are certain things that are in there still that are archaic, that need to be changed, and I would do that with the judicial branch. Other things I would want to implement in terms of collaboration is we have a lot of different, the caucuses are designed to be collaboration. Diversity and Inclusion Caucus, which is led by Chair Tovar and Vice Chair Jackson, they do a really good job of encouraging executive and Senate members to talk and communicate, and that's so.
Thank you. Rebuttal?
My opponent has, a rebuttal is my opponent has said that we cannot force collaborations. We haven't done this last year, and we are divided as ever. But it's time to form a new route and this is how many workplaces do it. If you get this is why teams exist. If you have someone from the other aisle to work together, you can create a bill that you both can have common ground with, and only for the student, and that will benefit only to the students. That's why I agree that we should continue, with a system where we can collaborate.
You. Your response?
Yeah, so when I stated you can't force collaboration, it wasn't we can't do it as in we're not capable, it's in we shouldn't, and it's dangerous. And I think creating teams like caucuses is a wonderful idea for collaboration, and that is so much more encouraging to unite people on a common goal rather than forcing them into a situation. I'll be honest, a lot of times governing documents isn't very important to executive branch. They're really busy doing outreach. Their main jobs are looking at academics and outreach to students and benefiting students directly.
Thank you. This next one was also emailed in and is also for both candidates. What measures have you been actively taking to be inclusive and accessible in your campaign?
Yes, I believe that measures such as creating a system where we have closed captions on my videos is something that I have done. I know the first video I did, I forgot to do a closed caption, and a fellow senator did correct me, and I was like, thank you for your correction, and I immediately took down the video and replaced it with the same video but put closed captions on it. So I believe that things are, it's a learning curve for me. I'm human, I'm not perfect, I acknowledge that, and I believe that, going to different SDPS offices and asking for, what I'm planning to do, diversity caucus, and, explaining my situations in creating a diverse background is something that I have done and will be continued to do during this campaign.
Thank you.
I'm really lucky to be friends with one of the SDC senators, Ariadne Athey, and she keeps me in line at all times. She makes sure that I'm being as accessible and inclusive as possible. I have alternative text on my Instagram photos, and I make sure the video we're creating right now has closed captions. It's why it hasn't been released yet. And I think there are certain things that are really like going to spaces and being accessible. So not only making my content accessible, but making myself accessible. So going to college councils and saying, I'm here to listen, and not just going to advocate for your position and then leave, but staying for that whole college council meeting when you're able and saying, I want to listen to you and I want to hear you. And I think that's how I can make myself accessible to students.
Thank you. This next one is specific for you, Hill. You say your highest priority is making sure the CSU administration is held accountable and made aware of all students' concerns. How do you plan to communicate with them differently than other speakers and administrators have done in the past?
Well, first of all, is that we have weekly meetings, the student body president, vice president, and myself with President McConnell administration. And we need, and unlike other, I believe that other past administrations in general have been pretty tame, with administration, and we need someone who will go up there and say, we need to do this is something that the student body needs, and keep pressing it until it is, agreed upon or some collaboration has been, completed. And I think that being more forceful and strong with this is something that administration that we need our current leaders to do with student body leaders to do with our administration.
Thank you. You may respond.
So I think I have a specific plan for this. So Speaker Dixon tried to create something called micro-legislation, which is the idea that students could create their own piece of legislation if they had solutions to problems on campus. I think we need to start before that. I want to revamp that into be something where you can do a complaint or concern on campus, and we can turn that into legislation. We'll do the work for you because that's our responsibility, and the onus is on us to find the problems and fix them.
My opponent didn't answer, how she would work with administration. The administration is, the people that does most of the policies here for CSU. And, without the administration given us, we won't be able to, this. And I'd like to understand, how my opponent would go about in making sure that President McConnell or the Board of Governors are being held accountable to the students and only to the students, since we pay so much money to be here.
Your response?
So obviously, when we create those legislation, that would be resolutions, which would go straight to the administration and straight from the student's mouth to the administration. Also creating solutions to problems. The other thing I want to do is currently we only have one student representative on the Board of Governors, and I would like to add another one. Senate has the most diverse student voice of a body, and it represents all SDPS offices and all college councils. And to have those people send a message to the Board of Representatives is important.
Thank you. All right, this next one will be for both, and it was emailed in. Starting from day one, what tangible actions can you take to impact the lives of students on and off of campus?
Well, as I mentioned before, the top three priorities, transportation reform, that is something that I think students need currently. Being able to have a safe environment, people can bike to class safe without having to worry about being hit from a car or anything like that, or walking safe as well. Being able to have more lights and more stop signs, more patrol around the area. I think that's something that we can keep each other safe. Also, I believe that mental health is a top priority as well. Mental health, I'm currently working with the Director of Health to create a mental health app, essentially for every student to have it for free, and having a list of resources and breathing exercises on the app that students can take if they're feeling like they're in a crisis or any situation that is detrimental to their mental health.
Thank you.
You said day one. The first thing I would do is I would note that I think in terms of day one action, I would start with legislation. And I would start by finishing the diversity and inclusion initiatives within all job descriptions. So overviewing the executive job descriptions, overviewing the Senate job descriptions, making sure that before we even start, these jobs and these representatives are inclusive and diverse and seek diverse and inclusive voices. The next thing I would do is I would start setting up up those internal processes, picking a diverse and equitable parliamentary procedure, starting that complaint and concern forum, starting that advertisement campaign. And I would pose to my opponent something that when he has put forth that legislation.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Am I able to yield my time for her to finish her or what she was saying?
You're able to respond.
Okay. The legislation I did regarding the transportation was something that students wanted, and a poll showed 85%. And this is something that students really want regarding the Lyft Ramride bill that was completely across the aisle, and my opponent did oppose it. Despite the 85% of poll that supported it. And that's very concerning, and I would encourage my opponent to listen more directly to the students regarding these measures and making sure that we are doing what the students want and not for what we want for ourselves.
You respond?
So the poll was posted on Colorado State Memes, which I found was not necessarily, was a too representative sample, was not a representative sample of campus. I also want to note that the Lyft Ramride service would only host 0.002% of students and would require a tenth of our budget as senators, which is why I opposed it. I also say the co-counsel, the opponent, when he put forth the bill for previous transportation, we actually had the Transportation and Safety Committee come in and say it wasn't needed.
Thank you. Response?
I'd like to respond by saying that Colorado State Memes does have a following over 18,000. They have 18,000, which is a big chunk of the student body, and these votes are significant. No poll is going to have the entire population. That's why it's a poll. It's a sample.
Thank you. I will ask you one more general question, and then we will move on to closing statements. This last question was emailed in for both candidates. What do CSU students need to know about the role of speaker in ASCSU?
Well, the role of speaker is to facilitate conversations between different branches of government and work with the student body president and the vice president to make sure initiatives, bills are being done, and only solely for the student with new initiatives that we can come together. And also, the job of Speaker of the Senate is to hold senators accountable to making sure they're doing their job, making sure they're writing bills, and they keep on working for the students and only for the students, not themselves. And managing the Senate of around between 30 to 50 senators every Wednesday night, making sure parliamentary procedure is being implemented and it's continued to be worked throughout every Senate session through every senator.
Thank you.
So at full capacity, the Senate can have over 70 senators and associate senators, and that's one of the things I would want to do is get a full Senate. In terms of things I would be responsible for, chairing Senate sessions, advocating for students, collaborating with ASCSU executive, making relationships between my senators and I, as well as making relationships with them and executive branch. I would also be responsible for maintaining decorum, which would be, and protecting the senators and associate senators of that space by enforcing rules, as well as having a accessible parliamentary procedure so that everyone understands the rules and we can have an effective and efficient meeting, which would be my goal as speaker.
Thank you. We will now move on to closing statements. We will do them opposite as what we did opening statements. We will begin with you, Hazelton.
Thank you. Again, my name is Marlis Hazelton. I use she, her, hers pronouns. If you enjoyed I've spoken today about my policies, which surround accountability, advocacy, transparency, and inclusion. If you were impassioned by this, I ask you that you write my name in on the ballot. When you go onto RAMWED, you log in and you see that notification, you click that, you vote for president and vice president, and when you get to speaker, write my name in. Because I want to fight for students, and I want to be an advocate in this space on a much larger scale than I have previously. I have advocating experience, and I want to push that to the next level, and I thank y'all for watching.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Well, I would like to say that it has been an honor to be able to come out here and speak to the student body directly. And I'd just like to say this whole campaign has been something that is really dear to me, and I believe that my only job is to put you guys first, you students first. All Rams come first. And I believe that we need to have that during these times. We need to have leadership and accountability, especially during the time as we get back to a sense of normalcy within campus, starting in the fall. And I believe that if you believe my vision in creating a unified student government and a unified campus, vote for Kyle Hill. After you vote for the president, vice president, scroll down further. All you have to do is click my name, as my name will show, and you can. And I hope to get your vote, and hope I can get your trust. As we make sure that students are being put first. It's time for us to say we come first. We pay money between $29,000, $45,000, so we should come first.
Thank you guys both for showing up tonight, and thank you viewers for watching. I'd like to remind you that voting will be next week, and the announcement for the ASCSU year of 2021 to 2022 will be on CTV on April 1st. Thank you guys all for watching. Have a good night.